Well, hello and welcome to Tales from the Bay. Less from the Bay, but certainly tales, at least, that come out of the Bay. A brand new kind of 49ers podcast for the UK. Have you been listening to the podcast previously with the guys from out in the Bay? They'll still be popping up on the show as well. But what we figured is we need to bring a bit of British flair to this 49ers podcast, just give it a little bit of a UK twist. And I'm delighted to say that one of the finest watchers of 49ers football and one of the best follows on 49ers Twitter in the UK, that's me, Will Gavin. Sorry, I'm kidding. Alongside me, Nicholas McGee is here as well to talk all things Niners. Nicholas, how are you, sir?
I'm very well. Well, thank you. All the better for your compliment there. You're too kind, my man.
Well, look, just as people kind of get used to this, obviously we're going to be going through the coming weeks of the season up until what we hope and expect will be a playoff run. Maybe felt a little bit more positive about being even a Super Bowl run prior to this weekend. Although maybe Nicholas is a believer in Brock Purdy. We'll wait and find out on that one. But just before we get into that, Nicholas, talk a little bit about your 49ers fandom, how you came to the Niners, and just give the listeners a bit of your background.
Yeah, I've told this story plenty of times now. I'll never get tired of retelling it. It happened about 2005, so not a high point in 49ers history. They were certainly on a low ebb at that point. It was around my birthday that year. I was only turning 15 and had the classic British tradition of, as you get older, you get a lot of money, more than presents for your birthday. I had about £50 left to spend, and went with my dad to what's known as a White Rose Centre here in Leeds, a jewel of South Leeds. So it's going to come to be
jewel of the West Yorkshire Crown.
Not affectionately known in any way, but there used to be an old American sports shop there, which is long since departed the building. And I went in there with him and looked around at some jerseys, and for a second, pondered around some New York Jets jerseys until I was hastened away to a section of a shop that had 49ers ones with an old linebacker by the name of Julian Peterson, and agreed with my father that the jersey was nice and bought it, and decided to get plugged in and joined the old message board. In the time where message boards weren't just resided on Reddit, there used to be one on the official website there, and made some friends there, and eventually became a moderator of that. I've still got the Joe Staley autographed picture behind me from they gave me for doing that task. They did that in the jacket, which I still have and can bring out now. It's getting colder, and yeah, just progressed from there as more and more games got shown on Sky, and have got more and more into it and learning the game, and eventually went out there in 2013, before Candlestick was demolished, to see them beat the Rams. I've been out there again since in 2016. Not been able to get back there since. Had plans for 2020, but we all know what happened in 2020, so that got the kibosh put on it. But yeah, it's just continued to grow from there, and have so many friends and so many connections that they have so many emotional ties to this team now that I can't see myself ever getting away from them.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Similarly, I kind of... I spent a bit of time in the Bay Area when I was younger. My old man worked for a company that had a base out in San Francisco, and the first game I ever watched on American TV was a Sunday night football between the 49ers and the Giants back in around similar era, a little bit earlier, around 2002, 2003. I always say that if I'd got an earlier flight, I'd probably have ended up being a Raiders fan. But I instead a 49ers fan, and you just, over those 20 years, you become diehard, don't you? You can't help it. And I mean, Nicholas, you're a guy who... like I say, following you on Twitter, you break down film now. You pay real attention to it. You're out there putting clips out of the All-22 and stuff. So when did you start doing that and really trying to like engage with people on social and really get into like, you know, not just following the team, but actually kind of breaking down what they do?
Yeah, I would say that kind of started around 2014, where I kind of long since finished university. I moved in with my girlfriend, now wife, into a flat in Leeds, and Game Pass started coming out, and it started progressed from there. And as Twitter became more of a thing where you could develop a following by sharing your opinions and clips, and sharing those all 22 clips around, it just kind of blossomed from there. And that's the way you develop a lot of engagement and a lot of more kind of eyes to your work and your thoughts and everything. So it's kind of blossomed since there, I would say. And thankfully, as the Niners have progressed from away from the glory days of Jim Harbaugh and away from the drudgery of Jim Tomsula and Chip Kelly, it's become a lot more fun to break down, and people are more engaged with more of the diverse scheme of Kyle Shanahan.
I'm a big Tom Sula guy. I won't have anything bad said against him.
Oh, I
Maybe
love him as a person. But yeah, it was a tough
better
one.
line coach than he was a head coach, maybe. But
100%.
look, this is the bit where we're meant to be chatting about ourselves and stuff. But we've got some breaking news, which I know isn't breaking news and doesn't work on a podcast, but it's glorious news, as we're going to be talking about Jimmy's injury later, and we're going to be talking about Brock Purdy as well. The news is Baker Mayfield to the Los Angeles Rams. It's only a very small contract, 1.35 million, and there's even that potential for a late compensatory pick if he ends up signing somewhere else this off season. But from my perspective, it wasn't a guy that I wanted to see come in and cause the distraction. I loved that. Brandon Aiyuk speaking this week spoke about the fact that he was going to be Brock Purdy, and that's where he's going to ride with Jimmie Ward, who in the post-game interview that we did with him on TalkSPORT this past weekend just talked about his poise and how much he loved him. And so we'll hear that a little bit later in the show as well. But Baker Mayfield is coming to the division, just not coming to the Bay, Nicholas.
Yeah, I think that's great news that he's not being brought in to the Niners. I wish this had kind of happened a week earlier, that he'd been waived and could have signed for the Rams and could have helped the Rams have better quarterback play against the Seahawks than they got from John Wolford. Then that game might have ended a bit differently, and they might have done San Francisco a huge favour. But no, I completely agree with you. I don't think, having seen a young rookie come in a pretty desperate situation and play pretty well, that you then want to upset the locker room by saying, here's Baker Mayfield, a guy who doesn't know, is obviously on offense from his days in Cleveland, but hasn't played well for a long time and would need the time to adjust to the system and everything. I don't think that's worth upsetting the locker room balance. And I think Shanahan understood that by quietly bringing in Josh Johnson for his 75th stint at a different NFL team and then just moving on and saying we're good with what we've got.
Right, we're going to talk more Purdy. We're going to talk more Jimmy coming up shortly. But first, let's get to our 5 Things feature, with this week features a man who absolutely tore it up during his first game back this week. Defensive tackle / end, plays a bit of both, Aiyuk Armstead.
49ers defensive lineman Arik Armstead, now in his 8th season with the Niners, is a Northern California native and a huge force on the D-line and in the community. For the 3rd consecutive season, Armstead is the 49ers nominee for the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award. His community-minded commitment to education is highly notable. He founded the Armstead Academic Project in 2019 to help ensure students have access to academic programs, school supplies, scholarships, and a support system. His own education in high school in Sacramento and college at Oregon saw him excel in both the classroom and 2 sports, as basketball is another love. So is chess, where he's competed online in over 2,000 virtual chess matches as a way to unwind and refocus off the field.
The brilliant Aiyuk Armstead there with our 5 Things feature. Will Gavin, Nicholas McGee, bringing you tales from the Bay. Let's get into it then. The big talking point off the back of that Dolphins win. Excellent victory. Started off this tough run of 3 games with Tampa Bay home next weekend, then Seattle on the short week, on the road on the Thursday after. Couldn't have hoped for a better result. It's exactly what we were looking for from the game. The offense looked multiple. The defense absolutely balled out. Basically held Tua Tagovailoa to 1 big play early in the game, which, all right, Mike McDaniels, we see you. We get that you're going to come out and you're going to show up a little bit and throw some funk at us after you many years working with Kyle Shanahan. But basically, it was 1 drive outside of that. 4 turnovers, really, really impressive. And yet still, when we spoke with Jimmie Ward afterwards, and the general feeling is that feeling of, has a Super Bowl run, as we were looking at, potentially come to an end? Because Jimmy Garoppolo goes down. Turns out it's broken ankle, foot. He's broken a few things, is the way Kyle Shanahan put it. Before we get on to Brock first, Nicholas, and you already said it, played pretty well, and I've got some pretty positive things to say. I think, first of all, to say about Garoppolo is that this was both his best season as a 49er so far over those games he'd started, for my money, and also maybe proof that this system that's always been kind of considered quarterback-proof might actually finally be quarterback-proof with the weapons that they've got there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the first point, definitely. Jimmy's final season, I would say, just for the character he showed, he'd be able to put up with everything before the season in training on the side field. and then agreeing to come back as a backup and then immediately stepping in the emergency situation when Trey unfortunately suffered his injury just speaks to his character and speaks to what kind of a guy he is. And you're right, after the Seahawks game and then the debacle in Denver, which we won't spend much more time on, he's played extremely well. Even in the games they lost against the Falcons and the Chiefs, I thought he played pretty well, and he's really developed and become more willing to push the ball downfield a little bit. But he's often criticised for not doing that. I thought he was getting better at doing that as well. And he really looked at home and really looked like he might be ready to lead this team to a Super Bowl. Whether that's the case now, I don't know if it's Super Bowl bust. It might just be playoff berth, and we'll see how we go. It's probably how it. Because I still think they'll make the playoffs. No, there's any issues there. And you're right. I said this on Twitter the day after the fact, is that this was probably the ultimate win for the Kyle Shanahan ecosystem. It's between the offense and the defense, it proved that it was against a team that themselves have Super Bowl aspirations, and then a third string quarterback is able to pilot the team to a victory against a very, very good opponent that, even though the defense isn't their strong suit, they still have some good players there, particularly up front, and they were able to do that. And it was a victory for his system and victory for all the coaches that he's brought in, both on the offensive, defensive side, showed how well they get this team prepared to beat anybody regardless of the circumstances.
It's very difficult to call the scoreline. Flattering is the wrong word, because I think when you see the late touchdown, the late field goal coming off the turnovers, then it does suggest a slight inflation. When they pulled it back to 23-17, I had some genuine concerns. And I do think that there are red zone concerns, and I do think that there were problems finishing off drives, as much as there was a lot to like about the performance on that side of the ball. You just have to look at the time of possession, which ended up being 40 minutes plus to the 49ers.
Yeah.
A 2-to-1 time ratio really just gave you an idea, and they forced two outside of the turnovers, multiple 3-and-outs as well against an offense that's played incredibly well. Yes, they're missing both their starting tackles, which is never going to help, but Nick Bosa's getting in that backfield and wrecking shop, and I mentioned Aiyuk Armstead already had a brilliant game, but kind of the fact is, with all of that in, the focus is on Brock Purdy. And I love what he said about Jimmy Garoppolo afterwards, talked about what he'd done in terms of taking him in, being a brother to him, telling him the little things, his experiences, how they've helped him in his career. He said he shares them with him, not a secretive guy, not a guy who's been in any way difficult about that. I think we've had a lot of fortune in this organization when it came to Alex Smith, with Colin Kaepernick, and when it came to Jimmy Garoppolo, both with Trey and now with Brock Purdy as well. And if I look at Brock Purdy's performance, Nicholas, I mean, it was essentially Jimmy Garoppolo. If he'd had a 10 on his back, I don't think I would have necessarily even noticed. If I'd missed the first quarter, I would have been like, oh, Jimmy's lost a couple of inches. But, he did everything that I would expect him to be able to do in that system, and actually made some really big pressure throws, because what you saw on the other side of the ball from the Dolphins is they absolutely brought the house. And I completely understand why. The guy who is technically Mr. Irrelevant, not so irrelevant anymore, Josh Boyer bringing a fifth rusher, sixth rusher on almost every down wasn't a surprise at all. But you look at the 3rd and 10 to George Kittle in particular, where Jalen Phillips is right in his face and he throws an absolute dart in stride in the perfect position. And I just thought, for me, it's almost like he's the antithesis of Trey Lance. Trey Lance has that ridiculous ceiling and could be a very, very special player, but played less football than anyone else in the last 3 drafts, in an FCS school, had all of those knocks against him. Brock Purdy started 4 years in, all right, maybe not a Power 10 school, but at least a Power Conference school. And I think he showed all of that poise and all of that experience. And it's a very small sample size, but I find myself kind of 48 hours removed, not thinking we can't go to the Super Bowl anymore. Thinking maybe it'll take more. Maybe it's going to really take, the defense can't take a day off, which can happen. We can't have another game like that Chiefs game. I just can't work out if I'm just getting overexcited about something that's a very small sample size.
Yeah, I think Sunday will be a big tell, because that Bucs defense is better than what the Dolphins are. But you're right. I think the key point is that he was decisive. The one thing, whether it's a running game with the running backs or a quarterback, the Shanahan system demands decisiveness either way, whether it's hitting the hole as a running back or seeing it and throwing it as a quarterback. And he was that. And he had a lot of free rushes in his face, but he was poised. Didn't have the strongest arm, but there was plenty of accuracy. He delivered some really, really tight window throws to the likes of Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk. But he looked very, very, very good at certain times. He was very good at kind of manipulating coverage with his eyes. He was able to move defenders. He showed the ability to change his arm angle from time to time when he came under pressure. He would wait for the throwing window to go open and hit it. There was a lot to like there. He was supported by one of the better running performances I think we've seen in a while from the Niners running game with Christian McCaffrey. I think he was not 100%, but he fought through very well and was again an asset in the passing game. You had Jordan Mason, who I thought was excellent running kind of those wide zone runs and getting downhill in a hurry, and he's such a big man that he was delivering some punishment out there, and the line played pretty well for the most part, I think. But yeah, the arm strength isn't like anywhere near kind of top caliber. It's probably a little bit of a tick below Jimmy, but in terms of that short intermediate passing game that the Niners typically have been built around, when they've had Garoppolo in there anyway, there was nothing really to kind of knock too much. Occasionally held the ball a bit too long and kind of showed some struggles in the pocket a little bit. There's instances where he kind of ran into pressure. He probably could have had the chance to climb the pocket and get the ball out rather than immediately looking to escape. He's a bit more. I wrote down a bit more of an adventurer quarterback, whereas Garoppolo was kind of, he would just see it and throw it. There's a little bit more adventure to Brock Purdy in terms of that he will do things out of structure. But I think he can do everything that Garoppolo was doing, particularly in terms of that intermediate game. And yeah, I think it's just more of a wait and see kind of thing in terms of the Super Bowl. I think a lot of people telling you that you're crazy to even think that, but I don't think. I mean, we've seen Nick Foles coming in and win a Super Bowl, and okay, Nick Foles had a lot more experience than Brock Purdy does at this level, but strange things can happen, and once you have to get there, and you have to go from there. And the one thing this team will have now is it will have a lot of that nobody believes in his energy, and as much as the Dolphins gave them bulletin board material with the comments from Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert in the lead up to this game just gone, they'll have bulletin board material for the rest of the season with people telling them they can't win it, and they don't need it with the energy this team play with most of the time.
I also think that this Dolphins defense is relatively underrated. I think people who maybe aren't watching film and paying kind of close attention, but watching, kind of, people like I probably would be if I wasn't doing this as a job, red zone watchers and kind of more casual fans, won't consider them a top tier defense. But I thought they got really good play out of Christian Wilkins. I thought that Zach Seiler was absolutely excellent this weekend. Bradley Chubb had some really big plays. They've obviously got that excellent secondary that I think people do know about with Xavier Howard, Javon Holland, like big playmakers out there as well. So he didn't do this against an absolute nobody. My concern is, and when you come back to what you said about the arm strength, is that is the downside, and that's why he's the antithesis of Trey, is that Trey has that huge ceiling, but that much lower floor. This feels like a higher floor, but also the ceiling is, there's only hobbits are fitting into this room, not necessarily big burly men like you, and I'm sure I think that's where I get concerned that you come up against a really good defense who would do essentially what we did to Tua this weekend, which is flood that intermediate level. I'm not sure anyone has a linebacker core as good in coverage as the 49ers do, but actually flood that intermediate level, make it very, very difficult to make the reads at that level, get pressure on the quarterback so they have to get it out early. And that's where I think there will be games where he does struggle, but he couldn't have done much better out of game one. And I'm aware that we're recording this a couple of days before it comes out, and so people will be aware of all this news, and we're calling it breaking news when we're talking about it. But we have also just heard that Jimmy Garoppolo isn't going to require foot surgery. It's not a Liz Frank injury, and so he could return in 7 to 8 weeks. Now, in the words of Adam Schefter or his sources, that makes him a potential playoff contributor. I think if we're still in the playoffs, come what would then be the division, not even the divisional championship. I think that would be the actual conference championship game, right? If we get to the conference championship game with Brock Purdy under center, I think you turn into the 0-1 Patriots, and you have to kind of go, sorry, Drew / Jimmy, but we've got to go with the guy that got us here.
Yeah, the immediate thought when you said that, an immediate thought I came to was Drew Bledsoe immediately. It's that parallel, and you saw people on ESPN this week saying it would go beyond the Tom Brady thing, which I think it'd be tough to argue because at least I'm not overly familiar with Brady's Michigan career. I was only 10 at the time when he left.
Trust me, those of us who were old enough to have paid attention still didn't know much about his Michigan career. Yeah. I'm not sure many of his coaches at Michigan knew much about his Michigan career.
So he had maybe a bit more of a profile than Brock Purdy did in terms of playing for a real power school. So I think this would definitely surpass that as well. You're right. The ceiling is going to be lower. I had the image of a static caravan when you were trying to describe kind of that box you fit into, that kind of thing. And teams they're just filming him already, so they're going to try and neutralize what he did well in that game. And I think it's going to be a lot more on the likes of Christian McCaffrey. You might see a lot more of what you saw towards the back end of last season when it was really heavily on Deebo Samuel's shoulders in terms of the screen game and getting the ball out of the backfield. I think you might, if they've got to get Deebo's calf 100%, which I don't think it was on Sunday, if they have an opportunity to get that right, I think that's going to be key because he's going to have a big load to carry as well. If it's going to be Brock show the rest of the way.
Look, right, we're going to give our thoughts on some of the rest of the NFC coming up. We'll look forward to the Bucs game this Sunday night, which obviously we'll be covering on TalkSPORT 2, and we'll be covering here on the Gridiron channels as well through Tales from the Bay. But before we get to any of that, let's hear from safety / kind of nickel corner, Jimmie Ward, as he's become over the course of this season. He's one of my favorite talkers in the 49ers locker room. Myself and Larry Kruger were lucky enough to jump on with Jimmy after the game. Straight afterwards on Sunday, we broke the Garoppolo news to him about the broken foot, so you can just hear how difficult that news is, but also some very, very positive things to say about Brock Purdy. 49ers safety, Jimmie Ward. Jimmy, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Hello, sir. How are you? How's the locker room feeling off the back of that victory?
Everybody's excited. We're kind of down. Starting quarterback went down, so we feel for him right now. But other than that, we're happy, to come away with the win. Brock came in and he did his thing. It was just he had a tremendous game, and he put the team on his back and made some great throws out there.
Jimmy, you practiced against. I was just going to say, Jimmy, you practiced against Brock a lot this summer. What we saw tonight is pretty much what you guys have been seeing in practice, fair to say?
Yes, he doesn't talk much. He carries himself like he's going to be starting each game, just like his whole preparation. And one thing that surprised me is, he's a rookie quarterback and he throws the ball on time. Like normally, sometimes, quarterbacks don't want to throw picks in practice and that, but he trusts himself. If he throws a pick, he's learning, so he's practicing like he play. Like a lot of quarterbacks don't do that. Like they take advantage of scout team knowing they can't be tackled, but he practices good. Oh dang, my bad. Oh yeah, but he practices like he play. Sorry about that. Debo just walked past that. Man.
No problem.
We got to allow for that. That's fine, Jimmy. Yeah, look, I have to say on Brock, I don't know if this came across in stadium for the guys there, but from here at home, after the first touchdown drive, he beat his chest and appeared to mouth what like to us trying to lip read at home. It's my Did he have that feel on the sideline, kind of that carrying of the team, not being a guy having to be carried coming in?
Sorry, say that again. It kind of skipped a little bit. Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Sorry. And it's also very British of me. It's very difficult, I understand, with the
that's a cool accent,
as well.
Cool accent.
That's too kind. I was saying, like, we saw him beating his chest after the first touchdown and shouting about what looked like, from kind of lip reading on TV, him saying, it's my time, it's my turn. Like, that attitude and that kind of coming into the game and being able to pick it up as that rookie, is that what you saw from him on the sideline? Like almost an instant leadership to him?
Yes, man. I didn't even see him beat his chest, but I just seen like how poised he was out there, man. Like, it's amazing. Like, I'm saying, I haven't seen so many rookie quarterbacks come in a game like that. Like, that's a big game. That's a playoff team. Like, I want to say they're either in number 1, 2, or 3 spot in the AFC. For him to come in and have that type of game is amazing.
Jimmie, you guys held the ball for 79 plays and over 40 minutes of game action. It was a 2-1 time of possession advantage. I'm just kind of wondering, you guys already have a fast, physical defense. Can you play faster and more physical when your offense possesses the ball for 2/3 of the game?
Hopefully, hopefully we're not on the sideline getting cold. But, yeah, we just feed off each other. Like if the offense, making plays and pitting those long drives on, we feed off that. And it makes us want to go out there and three and out the offense and to get the offense back the ball, so they can stay in rhythm.
You had the interception, the first turnover of that second half, that kind of swan dive over the receiver as well. I have to say was particularly impressive from our end. But also what we saw in that play was Aiyuk Armstead getting right up to his face as he released. So tell us a little bit about that play, but also what Aiyuk brought to the defense today.
Oh, that's big time. Aiyuk being back, man, that's tremendous. He's one of the guys who's very stout in that middle, helps to stop the run. I have to shout out to the other guys that was in there, too, while Aiyuk was out. They did a great job, in his absence. But on that interception, it was a pivot route. They run the same offense as us, so I know they like a lot of whip routes, pivot routes. So I just looked at it. It was kind of like a slow pivot. He kind of stuttered coming off the ball, so I said, okay, he's going to do a double move. And I seen the ball. Quarterback had pressure. He just threw it, and then I dove and jumped to catch, caught it, and I tried to get up and, TD, but I think I got tripped up from behind or something.
Well, it was a great overall defensive performance by you guys, holding this team to 17 points. There was a lot of jawing early in the week from Mostert and Jeff Wilson about Jimmie and about this game. Did that jawing continue on the field today? And did it add to your resolve to get this one because, maybe there is a little bit of a rivalry between McDaniel and Shanahan?
Definitely. It was a lot of competition out there. Both teams was competitive. They know us very well, and we know them very well. Coaches and players. So I know there was a few guys that was blocking me a little extra hard. Trent Sherfield, who scored the 75-yard touchdown. He said something sleek to me, but I'm not really a talker. I kind of talk with my pad to him, and I kind of write that down. Like I'll eventually go back to safety next year, and you got to catch the ball coming across them. And I remember that, and I won't take it lightly.
The reports coming out now, Jimmie, I don't know if you've got them in the locker room yet, but is that Jimmy Garoppolo did break his foot this evening and so likely will miss the rest of the season. It's obviously a huge blow, and he's come in and performed so well in place of Trey. And we've talked a lot about Brock Purdy on this call already, but it speaks to that next man up mentality you guys are going to have to carry.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. We got a good team. We got a stacked team. So, that shows right there. Brock was able to come in and win the game for us. And I was banged up at the beginning of the season. Aiyuk Armstead just came back. Kinlaw out. A lot of guys been E-man out. We had, Demo come in, and he just caught him a pick. So, we got guys that can always sub in because we got a lot of starters here. Even if you're not starting right now, you can eventually end up starting, and all you got to do is just plug and play.
What'd you think of the big boy, J.P. Mason? Man, he was impressive. Almost 6.5 yards a carry. I was eager to see him. We finally got a chance to get some extended run. Nobody wants to tackle him, huh?
That's my underdog. That's my underdog, man. I love Mason. I remember when we first got in, and I was trying to it was camp. We was doing like punt block drills and stuff. So I tried to jump in, and then I was like, man, Mason, let me go. Until I ended up missing it, and I was like, dang, man, I should have just let him go. So I ended up talking to him. I said, man, my bad, bro. I just wanted to go ahead and get my rep out the way. But it's just him, to me, I'm happy for him, because he had a great game. But it's just I saw it back in camp. I seen how eager he was to go out there and do punt drills. And when we on cuff together, he'd tell me, hey, you don't got to worry about my side. Like, just stuff like that, man. Having young guys like Brock, like Mason come in and be confident and plug in and have great games, man. Like, that just show you how deep our team is and how tight our team is, too.
It's a tough couple of weeks coming up as well, Jimmy. Started with today, but next week the Buccaneers, Super Bowl champions just a year and a half ago with Tom Brady, and then the Seahawks on the road. Defining couple of games for you guys. I know I've only just got past this one, but little bit of a side eye on beating Brady in that Bucs offense next week.
I'm just, we got to go to work when it's time to practice. Got to wait for the game plan, and of course we want to go out there and come off with the win. But at the same time, we got to put the work in and practice and get to Sunday. Once we get to Sunday, then we're gonna be locked in and ready to go.
Jimmy, I get a feeling that there's no panic here if you guys have to go the rest of the way with Brock. A win like tonight, kind of stamps that this kid can win games in the NFL. And he may be a rookie, but it's rookie in name only. He was a 4-year starter, a very experienced player. Do you feel that confidence that the team has in Brock that you guys can win games going forward with him?
Yeah, definitely. That's why Coach kept him on the team. That's why he made the team, and that's why he's been the backup all year. We saw it in preseason, like how good he was, how confident he was, and how he throws the ball, how he moves around in the pocket. So it's not a surprise to us, to be honest. I'm more happy for him, that he, that he's able to get his shot and he's able to shine like how he did tonight. Well, today.
Jimmy, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking to us, both in the UK and upstairs in the press box as well. Congratulations on the win tonight. And like you say, next order of business, Tampa Bay next weekend.
Thank you.
Brilliant Jimmie Ward there. Will Gavin, Nicholas McGee with me. Tales from the Bay. Check out all the other stuff that Gridiron do across their fine channels at Gridiron, at UK Gridiron. And yes, we are a 49ers podcast here, but we're also just a pair of football nerds, so we care a lot about what's happening in the rest of the NFL as well. And of course, we've just been talking about still potential playoff chances. So let's talk about those other teams in the NFC, Nicholas, who we think, we have some belief can go deep in the playoffs this year. Who in particular right now are you looking at, and say we weren't having to look so internally with our own concerns, who are you looking at in the NFC and thinking that's the team I don't want to face in January?
Well, it's been kind of a conference of 2-3 for much of, or maybe 4. I'm still not buying into this Vikings thing, particularly after barely squeaking past the Jets on Sunday. I'm not buying that. I mean, I know they beat the Bills in that incredible game, and the noises I made with that Justin Jefferson catch a few weeks ago, I think woke up half the street in my house. Kind of got several stray dogs and cats with that when that happened. But I'm still not completely buying them as being a serious threat. It's kind of been the Eagles, Cowboys, and the Niners. And I think both the Eagles and the Cowboys looked extremely impressive again at the weekend. The Eagles kind of really ridiculous all-around display. The ultimate maybe revenge game with A.J. Brown against the Titans. I wasn't expecting that by any way, shape, or form. And to do that to a Titans team that's been pretty stout against most teams across the season, be that the Chiefs or the Bengals, they've given everybody kind of a game and made it go down to the wire, and the Eagles just made it a no contest.
An AJ Brown performance so good that the Titans fired their GM 2 days later for letting him go out of the building.
That's I think the first GM fired with a winning record in his career. I mean, it's a genuine kind of double take at my phone when I saw that one. They're probably still the most impressive.
The organisation wouldn't pay him the money up front that he wanted in order to come in line with the other wide receivers in the market, which, as we saw as Debo fans and everywhere else, whether it was DK Metcalf, whether it everyone got 20 million plus, they weren't willing to pay him 20 million plus, so he asked to go elsewhere. I don't think that's John Robinson's fault, but there we go. Going off on a tangent. Carry on.
It's still a conversation for them. I'm sure we could spend a long time on that one. But I think the Eagles probably still the most impressive. It's kind of blasphemous to say anything nice about the Cowboys on the 49ers podcast. Given the history, they do look to me a bit better than they did last year. Particularly, I've been very impressed with the offense after losing Amari Cooper. You didn't think it'd have the same level of weaponry, but it doesn't look to have affected them. Very impressive how that two-man backfield has kind of worked. They've finally submitted to some kind of balance between Zeke and Tony Pollard, ignoring the words of Jerry Jones, actually written about this in the upcoming edition of Gridiron, that kind of the balance between the two, showing the value of a running back room, having the explosiveness of Pollard and the thump of Zeke is really working for them, and CeeDee Lamb's been excellent, and they're getting bits out of Dalton Schultz, and Dak is healthy and firing. I don't think their defense is as good as that of the Niners or even the Eagles, to be honest. You saw in the first half and a bit of that Colts game that they can be got at, and it's just that the Colts collapsed into a puddle in quite a pathetic way in the second half there. That kind of ran away with it from there. But I think it's still the Eagles with the Cowboys a tick below, and not buying into the Vikings. And we'll see where the Niners end up in the morass if Brock can keep this going.
I think on that Cowboys defense, which is one of those that has had a huge amount of praise, like there are obvious issues, like Trayvon Diggs is clearly a turnover machine, but also is a guy who gives up big plays regularly because he focuses so much on jumping routes. It kind of reminds you of early Richard Sherman before he got a little savvier and focused less on the picks and more on the coverage. I still think they're weaker at linebacker than most, although Leighton Vander Esch has, I think, stepped up more in the last 2 or 3 weeks to look like the guy that we expected him to be. And there's a few other players on that line who have done stuff. I thought Odighizuwa was much better this week. Dorrance Armstrong had a couple of big plays, but they are way thinner than the other teams. Mm-hmm. The Eagles remind you of that Eagles team that went to 52 and beat the 51, 53, whichever one it was, and beat the Patriots in Minneapolis because they could just rotate constantly on that line and it made such a difference. And, okay, they are turnover heavy as well, which is proven to be less sustainable against good teams. But I just think that lack of depth from the Cowboys when they're coming up against teams that are as multiple as the Eagles are in their run game and as we are in our run game, that will cause a problem for them. And of course, any team loses their best player, it's a real problem. But I feel like if the 49ers lost Nick Bosa, there is enough depth there that they will make up for it. Mm-hmm. They can't recreate what he does, but they will find a way. I think if you lose Micah Parsons, then, you might as well just not even bother turning up for the playoffs as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, Cowboys fans.
Yeah, you remove kind of the fear factor of that defense, and I think there was for 3 quarters, there wasn't any reason for the Colts to be scared of them, but then the snowball kind of got going with several turnovers, and then that was it. And there is better depth there. I've been impressed with Dorrance Armstrong all season. DeMarcus Lawrence has looked a bit more like himself this season after kind of a couple of injury hit years, but yeah, Parsons is kind of the straw that stirs the drink, as they say, and he's the one that when they need that splash play, he delivers it. I'm not sure that you'd be able to ask Dorrance Armstrong and Lawrence and others to be able to fill that void of that play that the defense really has to game plan for. I think other offensive lines, if Parsons was there, would be relish the chance to just say, okay, we'll focus on Lawrence and we have to account for Armstrong and a few others in rotation. But if you remove Parsons from that equation, it becomes a lot easier to game plan for.
I do, just to make sure that we're not just focusing on those two teams, we're going to be talking about the Buccaneers this coming weekend. And I really was impressed with what they did over a 2-week span prior to coming back from Germany, because they finally got the run game going, a run game that had been going at 60 yards a clip prior to that, and suddenly they're picking up 180 on the grounds while they're in Munich. The comeback against the Rams was just classic Tom Brady, last-minute comebackery, and then we saw that again against the Saints this week. I was astonished to find out that in 52 career come-from-behind victories, fourth-quarter victories, I was astonished to find out. I mean, 52 is actually a quite low number for a guy who's been in the league for 25 years anyway, but that's because they're often, particularly when it's the Patriots, because they're often winning games in the fourth quarter rather than losing them. I was amazed to find out that only twice has he come back from 13 points or more down, which was Monday night against the Saints, and then Super Bowl 50. I mean, I've proven that I can't remember the numbers anymore. Yeah. That one was 52, right? That was 51, 52, whichever one it was. Those are the only 2 times to come back from 13 points. So there's still part of me that looks at this and thinks, if Wirfs is healthy, if Donovan's healthy, if the line looks good, they can still win at those matchups in the trenches, and I still think they can cause people real problems. And they're the team that I refuse to write off, even though they consistently are this roller coaster of a team. And then, the Giants, the Commanders tying that game last week was bizarre, and both of them, I think, maybe don't have Super Bowl aspirations, but are threatening at being some kind of, a spoiler in the postseason. I think one of those two teams will come in and knock out a divisional champion. And actually, the Seahawks are the one that I kind of feel the least positive about. Obviously, as a 49ers fan, I feel that anyway. But I don't know, like, that magic in the last few weeks just seems to have petered out a little bit, and it took some beating to beat the Rams this week. And I just felt like that Munich trip and everything that they kind of did. I don't know. It hasn't felt like that absolute team that has just devastated over the first couple of months of the season. Maybe the talent's catching up on them, but what you can say about them, if we're going to be positive, is for a Seahawks side that hasn't drafted well for like 5 or 6 years, man, have they hit in this draft.
Yeah.
To get 2 starting tackles, 2 starting corners, and a starting running back in one draft is just practically unheard of unless you've somehow amassed like 10 first, second, and third round picks. Like, it is unreal hit rate for them. And so they're going to be a force in the division for years to come, I think. I mentioned the Bucs there. Let's talk about Sunday in the 9:25 window. It's both on TalkSport 2 and it's on Sky. What do you think about this game this weekend? I mean, all the talk this week's going to be about Brock Purdy. But have you seen enough out of the Buccaneers to think they can come to the Bay and cause us real problems?
Problems, yes. Win the game, probably not. I think it depends. If the Bucs if they get ahead and they're able to kind of really get after Brock, and we know he did well against pressure last week, then maybe it's kind of more of a recipe for a Bucs win. But I think if the Niners are able to, obviously they'll defer the kickoff, but able to get possession early and they're able to get a lead early, then it kind of leads it into a scenario where you've got the Bucs chasing the game out. I know you can bring back from 13 points down, but I'm still not overly convinced by that offense. It looked obviously great in the fourth quarter after the Saints had fallen over the ball 17 times and refused to go for it on fourth down and kicked however many 20-yard field goals and make you want to tear your hair out. But yeah, they had a big part.
You sound like a man who stayed up to watch Monday Night Football last night.
I actually didn't know. I watched the first half and then watched the second half in amazement at Dennis Allen contriving to throw that away, which is bizarre. But yeah, the defense is an uptick on the Dolphins. Is a better defense than what it was. Ollie Connolly has written about that in Gridiron for this month. How the defense has improved, particularly with the addition of Bradley Chubb. But I think the Buccaneers is still a tick above. So that will be a tougher test for Brock. It'll probably be a lot harder to run the ball with those linebackers, with Devin White and Levante David. Niners had a lot of success against the Dolphins in kind of moving their linebackers with the CMC and Deebo Samuel kind of joint gravity and the motions and everything, and shuffling them out of the formation and shuffling them out wide and running plays and kind of like dictating the number count and dictating kind of the matchups that they had there. I don't think the Bucs linebackers will be as willing to give that up as much. I think it'd be more like the Saints game a couple of weeks ago where you saw Demario Davis and Zach Bourne and Caden Ellis were a lot better, a lot more disciplined and really didn't give the Niners much in that regard. So I think it'll be tougher to run the ball and they'll be a tougher team to manipulate. So it will be a tougher challenge for Purdy, but I just think if Wirfs isn't healthy still, then it's not at the same level as the Dolphins, and they're 2 starting tackles. So I think the Bucs have got better up front as the season's gone on, but it's still a recipe for a pretty dominant defensive showing again. I don't see any reason with the way the Niners have been playing on defense why that should drop off. And I think there's going to be a lot of Tom Brady on the ground in week 14 as we are now.
Yeah, I mean, with Nick Bosa now streaking out into a lead in that sack race, I'd love for him to go and beat Alden Smith's record. I'd love him to go and beat the overall record, although I am very much, it is on my radar, separate to anything Niners, that we need to switch to a per-game basis on these records now. We're on a 17-game season. All this, yeah, he's going to break the record this year. You've got an extra game to do it, though, haven't you? Whoever it is and whatever the record is. I think you mentioned Tristan Wirfs' health. I think that is quite key for them. But like you say, they've managed to handle it better against the Saints defense, which obviously hasn't looked the same as last year, but has had games where it has done and did for large stretches of this game. I think the secondary is a bigger concern for me. Like when they've got Antoine Winfield and Sean Murphy-Bunting alongside Carlton Davis, and I think Jamel Dean, his emergence this year has been sensational in place of those guys. But when they've got them all healthy and in a rotation, then it becomes one of the kind of best secondaries in the NFL. And it's one that when they were all in first and second and third year, they took them to a Super Bowl and won it. So if they are back and healthy, that causes more concern. If 2 or 3 of those guys are still missing like they were last week, then that can be a real positive for the Niners. But I right now am believing in the small sample size. I'm believing in the scheme. I'm believing in the coaching. And I'm believing that until I see differently, I will believe in the Niners continuing to be a very, very good football team and in the conversation for the best in the NFC. I'll just wait and just see how long I get to hold on to that glimmer of hope for. Before we get to this weekend, of course, Larry Krueger has been out and about in the 49ers locker room for us in Santa Clara ahead of the matchup, catching up with the great and the good.
All right, we're here in the Niner locker room with Dre Greenlaw. Dre, big win over Miami. Talk to us a little bit about what you thought of the game.
Just excellent team win all around. You hate to see quarterback go down, but for Purdy to get in there and step up and do what he did and be able to finish the game out and get the W, man, it says a lot about our team and just the organization and where we want to be.
Yeah, one of my favorite plays in the game was when Tyreek got the ball on the sideline and you're closing in on him, and everybody knows this guy's the most elusive guy in the game, but you took just the perfect angle and snuffed him out like a candle. Something that you worked on, something that you thought about all the play?
No, it just comes natural, man.
Yeah.
They actually ran that play before. He freaking just ran straight to the sideline and outran me. So his game was on the line, and I saw exactly, they tried to fake the toss, and I got him coming back, and last time I was a step slow on it, so I knew I had to book it this time, and I knew he was getting the ball.
How you physically feeling? I know a couple weeks ago I was talking to you, and you said, man, my body's banged up, but you're flying right now, so you must be feeling better.
Yeah, I feel a lot better, man. It just comes with just, part of the game, and coming in here and getting in the cold tub, hot tub every day, just trying to get my body back under me, so at least by Sunday I can feel decent.
Yeah, they wanted us to ask you about the Pro Bowl. I mean, what would a Pro Bowl mean to you? Individual recognition. I mean, is that on your list of goals at the beginning of the year, or are your goals more team-oriented? What would making the Pro Bowl mean to you?
Yeah, it's not one of my goals, to be honest. It would be nice to get it, don't get me wrong, but my goal is probably always been team-oriented. Like if I can get the win, or if I can go to the Super Bowl, or it's stuff that you want as an individual player, like tackles and stats and different things. But if that's what comes with being a Pro Bowl, then of course that's what I want. But I just play the game because I love to play it, man. I love to compete, and if my teammates, my coaches, think of me as a Pro Bowl, then that's what I am. It don't matter about what everybody else thinks. So.
Your locker mate here, Brock, played a hell of a game off the bench. Do you remember a point in your history as a player at high school, college, Arkansas, where you didn't think you were going to play, you got thrown in the game? What's that feeling like?
It's unreal, man, especially the day of when you're not knowing that you're going to play or not. So, you coming ready, but at the same time, it's just like any other day. You don't think you're going to play, but when you do get the opportunity, that's why you stay ready. You know what I mean? So when you do get the opportunity, then, it's not like, oh, wow, you know what I mean? You saw this coming in your head a million times, and now you're ready for it. So you just kind of got to prepare for it a long time ago. And then, like I said, when that time comes, and just like you did, man, that time came, and he stepped up and made great decisions with the ball. And, it's gonna be fun to see him do it in the next couple of days.
Hey, last one for you. The ball comes out on time with Brock right now. That's hard to do. He's a rookie. This game's fast. When you're watching him, you study quarterbacks every week. What do you think of the way he's playing without hardly any reps?
Yeah, I've watched him for the past 13, 14 weeks now. So I practice against him, and he's shown plenty of times that he's more than capable to be able to just make not only any throw, but just get the ball out on time too as well. Like. He's special the way that he know how to read a defense, but he know how to manipulate the defense as well. So to see him grow, get better, from where he's at already, but to see him grow from that, it's going to be pretty fun to watch. So he's only going to get better with more reps and time. So we just, as a defense, got to make sure we got his back.
We're here in the Niner locker room with Brandon Aiyuk. And Brandon, how's the season going? Guys got a good win against Miami this week.
Great win, 5 in a row.
Yeah, playing well. At the beginning of the game, you and the undrafted rookie free agent, man, you guys seemed like you were drawing back and forth. What was he talking a lot at the beginning of the game?
I think they all pretty much were.
Yeah.
That's that type of game. I'm sure their coaches filled them in on what type of week it was going to be, and we were feeling the same way. So that's all that was.
Yeah. Talk to us about what you thought from Brock. What did you think of the performance? He seemed like he put the ball in your hands a number of times.
I think he did a great job. I was happy for him for sure. The fact that he was prepared, his week of preparation showed on Sunday. So this week, when he gets a chance to go here and have a full week of practice with everybody and kind of get in rhythm, I'm excited for him to see what he can do.
Yeah.
Again.
I would imagine it helps a lot as an offensive player, especially getting that week with the ones. I expect him to probably be better this week than he was last week. How do you see it?
Yeah, like I said, he gets a week of preparation to kind of work with everybody and get a feel down rather than just being thrown in fire on Sunday. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah. Is it pretty much what you've seen in practice or since camp with him? He seems pretty consistent.
Purdy?
Yeah, as far as Brock is concerned, as far as the way he's thrown it, he seems pretty consistent, and he really has been consistent since minicamp.
Yeah, super steady. The way that he's gone about his business, I think everybody in the locker room can respect the way that he does things and the way he shows up on a day-to-day basis. So now that it's his team for whatever the case may be, forever how long that may be, we're excited to see what he can do. Yeah,
teams don't typically play or win games with their third-string quarterback, but I get a feeling that you guys really believe in this guy. You were asked this week about Baker, and you're like, "Hey, we're riding with Brock." What's the feeling in here as far as where this team is, despite the fact you're on your third quarterback?
I mean, I think it's just what the NFL is. It's all about the quarterbacks. There's only 32 of them on any given week, so the talk is always about the quarterbacks. But at the end of the day, he's the next guy up in our room, in our locker room, and we feel confident about anybody that we have in this locker room at any position. I just think it's more so talked about and more so a bigger light on it just because it's the quarterback position, but we feel the same way from any position on the roster.
What would it mean to you to make a Pro Bowl? The Pro Bowl voting is coming up, and you're having a good year. What would it mean to you to make a Pro Bowl? Is it a goal? Is it a goal of yours, or do you only have team goals?
I play receiver. I have my own individual goal. But right now, I don't know. I haven't really gotten into like the Pro Bowl type of goals. I have my own professional goals, individual. But I have a time to reflect on that, and that's usually when I'm cleaning out my locker and going home. Right now, it's December, and we have a chance still with our team goals. So I think my personal and my team and the team goals go hand in hand. So let's look at it like that.
How are you physically feeling at this point in the year? We're getting towards, you guys have been going at it since July. How do you feel physically at this point in the season?
I feel good. Yeah. I feel good. I think the whole team, our training staff, our nutrition staff, everybody, our weight staff, they've done a great job of putting a plan together and just kind of learned through the years things that we didn't like, the things that we felt we didn't do well or where we struggled at, and we put together a good plan. And also my own personal team in terms of being able to come out here day to day, every single day at practice, being able to perform the way I know how, and then also being able to try to get in the best shape and being prepared to play games. Because I know it's a long season. We feel like we have a lot more football left to be played. Like my cousin just came back home. He was out here. They're done with his college season. They're done. He's done. He's looking at me like, how are you guys still playing football? And that's just what it is in the NFL. So I'm hoping to just continue to stay blessed and be able to have health and come out here and play the game that I love.
Hey, two last ones for you. Brock came off the bench and played well. I'm just kind of wondering, I've watched you going back to like your sophomore year at ASU. I don't remember you coming off the bench, but you probably at some point in your career, high school, college, junior college, where you didn't know you were going to play and you just got thrown into the action. What's that moment like when you're getting your first taste of it?
It's different. It's very different, especially just kind of, there's a mindset that you kind of have, like, that you kind of build into throughout the weeks, knowing where you are in position based. So it's like you kind of get in that mindset of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Just that mindset of, I'm going to go out there, because you're going to go out there. But it's kind of a different mindset when that's not the case. It's more so preparation. It's more so when my number's called, so it's a tough area to balance, because it can go one of two ways, and you never want to go on the other side of that. You want to stay on the positive side, so that when you do get your opportunity, that you're in a clean headspace. So it's a little bit different.
Hey, last one for you. Tampa, you've already looked at them on film. A lot of good young DBs over there. What does their defense look like to you? Anything that you can share with us?
I think they have a good unit in terms of DBs. I think this might be the best all-together unit, safeties, corner, nickel, that we faced all year. I got to watch them on Monday against a team that we just played, so I watched them a little bit. But they have some good corners, long guys that can run. So it'll be a good task for us this week. But as the season goes along, and then we get to the midpoint of December, we look forward to those opportunities against great teams and great defensive units. So it'll be a fun one this weekend.
Hey, appreciate you. Good luck the rest of the year. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Larry Krueger in the 49ers locker room at open practice, speaking to the guys, getting some great content for us on Tales from the Bay. So a bit of a different show this week. If it's your first time coming to us, welcome. We really appreciate you being along. We aren't just for Niners fans, but we understand if most of you are Niners fans, because we are a pair of Niners nerds. Nicholas, any final thoughts to send us out on?
I'll put it on the spot a little bit there.
I really wanted just like a Brock Purdy till I die.
I'm fully on board with that. As for a man who's considered short at 6'1" in the NFL, and a man of kind of diminutive stature myself, it would be great to see a short, in inverted commas, quarterback succeed and lead the Niners deep into the playoffs. And I'm staying positive, and a lot of people ready to declare the season over. It's certainly not over. 8-4. They only need a couple of wins to get in the playoffs, and I see from the remaining schedule, there's plenty of opportunities to get there. So I don't have any doubts about getting into playoffs. The big one, I think, will be the Thursday night football game against the Seahawks. Probably decide the division now, I think. But I still see reason to be positive, particularly with the surrounding ecosystem that I pointed out that he's got around him. And I think the Niners will win a close one this weekend.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Nicholas, joy to be on with you. Thank you so much for being with us. Everyone that listened, do hit us up on social media at Gridiron, at UK Gridiron on Instagram. Find us on TikTok as well. Myself and Nicholas are on there. Nicholas does some great film breakdowns, and I occasionally just scream in all caps, Jeff Reinbold style, on a Sunday night when I get angry. So, I mean, very different worlds, but check us out on there. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, for getting involved. This has been Tales from the Bay.